Hello, namaskar, namaskara, namaskaram, namaskar. My name is Pooja Dwivedi and today we are going to find the answer to the question, is Quran the new enemy in Nordic countries? Now, the recent spike in the cases of Quran burning, not only in Sweden but different parts of Europe, specifically Denmark, has raised this question. What is going on? What is going on needs to be answered. So here we will find the answers to those questions. Without any delay, I would like to tell you that please do not make notes because I provide the notes of my class through my Telegram channel that is by the name of Pooja Dwivedi UPSC. If you have any queries regarding this examination, you can also be in contact with me through my Instagram channel. And if you're also interested in answer writing, I also conduct answer writing through my Telegram channel. Moving ahead, this is the roadmap that I have set for you. What can we expect to know by the end of this class? These are the many things. So, recently we saw that Quran burning has become a norm, not only in Sweden, but also other Nordic countries. Recently, we also saw that due to security implications, Denmark has decided to seal its borders. These are the Nordic countries which are affected by these instances. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation and other Muslim countries have reprimanded these countries. Even Turkey has said now they will have to reconsider the decision to let Sweden join NATO. We all know that after so many years, a proper agreement was reached at between Turkey and Sweden that it will let Sweden to join NATO. But now it is not anything but giving rise to many reactions that are coming against it. So, at least 3 of the actions that have been done in Sweden has been led by Salvan Momika. Who is he? He is a refugee from Iraq who says that he is witnessing the Nordic countries becoming a part of the Islamic culture. That is, because of the rise in population and rise in Islamic ideologies, the Nordic countries are in a grasp of it. The thing is that this is his ideology. And as we see, Nordic countries include Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and the Faroe Islands of Denmark, Iceland, and many other regions as well. These Nordic countries, they are no alien to Muslim population. But what is so different about the current situation? We will discuss that as well. See, now Salvan Momika, he says that there should be a ban on the holy book, Quran. Also, by looking at him, the Danish patriots also mounted its own anti-Muslim narrative or demonstration in the neighboring region of Denmark. And this is against the Islamization of Nordic society. That means there is a feeling of xenophobia or a phobia of aliens or other people who are entering into their country and changing the entire demography and culture of it. This is what they are alleging. Moving on. At least 10 copies of the Quran have been burnt in Denmark over the past week. Swedish far-right activist Rasmus Paludan is behind it. He says that he's angry against the decision that Turkey is taking, as in he's angry with Turkey that it is not letting Sweden join. Because of the recent instances, Turkey is saying that it may withdraw its consent over the joining of Sweden in NATO. We all know that NATO, here, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, here Sweden has wanted an admission since a long period of time, and it is also set to become one of the members. But now sword is hanging over it, over this particular agreement, because of the recent instances of Quran burning. Moving on, it is considered blasphemous as well as an insulting act to the holy book. Of course it is. Also, desecrating a Quran is seen as a grave offense which is worthy of severe punishment. Keep in mind, whoever is watching over here, this segment is dedicated to the students of UPSC. Two things we have to make it very clear over here. First, come with a neutral mind. Second, make sure that your stand is coinciding with the government's stand. Whatever your personal opinions are on this, do not at all try to impose anything that is against the constitution or against the government's stand on your paper, on your answer writing. So look at from this perspective only. Whatever may be your personal opinion, whatever may be your personal narrative, keep it to yourself, but you have to ensure that whatever the stance of the Indian government is against it, whatever the stance of the constitution is with respect to secularism, you have to copy that on paper. So please look at from that perspective. Do not at all watch if you're not preparing for UPSC from that perspective. What am I trying to say over here? If you're watching it from a political point of view, it may not be the correct class for you. But if you're watching for UPSC, this is the correct class for you, because here you will get molded in according to the government stance. You are going for a government paper. You will become a government servant. Okay. So if you have any other opinions other than this, please try to coincide with the government's opinion. Quran is the word of God transmitted to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel in Arabic, and that is why it is considered holy. The true believers of Quran should make it possible that they are in a state of ritual purity before even touching it. The Quran should not be touching the floor, or any object should not be kept over it. This is as holy. And of course, this will be a blasphemy. If you are burning it, it is a blasphemous action. Many countries are also in recognition of blasphemous activities such as this. So Denmark and Sweden are among the most secular and liberal countries of the world. The thing is that they openly let people talk, all sorts of things about other religions. This is what layman's term is. And both Sweden and Denmark say that they are examining the ways to legally limit the burning, also to de-escalate tensions with Muslim nations, because as I told you, that many countries, specifically OIC countries and other countries, they have reprimanded the diplomats by calling them to their own, by calling the diplomats, summoning the diplomats. They have said that we are not happy with it. Also, they have both already faced significant retaliation. Angry crowds have stormed Sweden's embassy in Baghdad in July. And their ambassadors have been called for rebukes from the Middle Eastern countries. I've already told you about this, that President of Turkey is saying that we may not let Sweden join in the future because of these activities. Also, the Danish and Swedish governments say that freedom of speech is already limited and hate speech is also recognized over there. But many critics believe that this act of burning Quran is not considered a hate speech. It is illegal to insult someone over their ethnicity or their sexual orientation, but neither country has legislation that can use to forbid such instances. Sweden also scrapped its blasphemy law in the 1970 and Denmark in 2017. In Sweden, police must issue a permit to the demonstrators if they have to protest. In Denmark, they just have to inform the police that we are going to protest. But if security implications are going to arise because of these protests, there could be limits on the protest as well. Moving on. Now, who are the Muslims in European countries? Let's know about them. There are different categories. First category is those indigenous Muslims who have lived in Europe for many centuries. And these consist of the countries such as Albania, Kosovo, Bosnia. So these are the countries where Muslim population have been living since centuries. Romania and Bulgaria, where they are native minority. That means they were living there, but still they are a minority. That means somebody came from, afar and then started inhabiting those regions. And Poland and Crimea, which is home to an old Tatar Muslim population. This is also there. Students and businessmen who come from Muslim countries, this is second category. Most of them, we see them in London. And France also has some 70,000 North African students. Businessmen mostly reside in London. Muslims who entered initially without restriction. These are the Commonwealth citizens in Great Britain, Algerians in France, and also or Surinamese and Indonesians in Holland. Another one is Muslims who came to Western European nations in the 1950s and 1960s as labor migrants. Now, this is something we have to keep an eye upon. As in, from here only all the story starts, the labor migrants. You'll get to that. European Muslims who are born in Europe to migrant parents. Anybody who has migrated over there, any Muslim parents and the children born to them. This is the next category. Then asylum seekers. Now this has become a major issue because if a category of any religion is residing over there, growing over there, they will certainly be acclimatized to that region. They will start professing loyalty to that region because they have been living there since many years. But these asylum seekers, these come in waves, and because of their coming in waves, there is a cultural gap and a cultural shock to the native population and those who are coming to the those foreigners who are coming as asylum seekers. So there is a lack of policy and xenophobia. So this migration first, and second is asylum seekers and refugees whose numbers have actually substantially increased in the last 3 years. As if we compare the data since from January to August 2015 only, 235,000 refugees poured into Europe, the majority of them from neighboring Muslim countries. And this is mostly from Gaza Strip, Iraq, Syria, where a lot of violence is going on. Now, Europeans, the thing is that there are several schools of thought, right? There is not only one narrative, but different narratives. So we are trying to present different narratives over here. First school of thought is saying that because of this boom in population, this refugee crisis that has occurred in neighboring Muslim countries, this is one of the reasons why we are seeing far right wings or far right parties, sowing identity crises in the native population. Second school of thought says that European countries overestimate the share of Muslims in the population. For example, in 2000 poll from the Social Research Institute, it found that French respondents estimated the percentage of Muslims in France at 31%. But what was it? In reality, it wasn't exceeding 6%. This was years back, but now latest census will also be showing what is the actual population, but still it cannot be as reliable. Germans gave the percentage at 19% in spite of the actual 4%. So let's see what has happened in the last 10 years. The total Muslim population is projected to jump from 25 to 35 million between 2015 and 2035. Many analysts believe that there are two reasons, both internal and external. External is the push factor, violence, lack of standard of living, lack of economic opportunities, climate crisis. This is the push factor. Pull factor, migrants were already living there, so they have family nexus. Secondly, better standard of living. Of course, most of the Muslims who are residing in those countries, they want peace. That is why they are residing over there. This is the next school of thought. So there are internal and external factors. Internal ones, they pinpoint to higher fertility rate among Muslim women and the fact that Muslim population is younger. People under the age of 30 represent 50% of the Muslim population in 2015 in Europe. Also compared with about 33% in the non-Muslim European counterparts. They also argue that Muslim women marry in larger numbers and at younger age, and also they are not divorced like the other counterparts, so they have a lot of time to reproduce. This is what the other point says. Net migrant influx is also there from countries, sub-Saharan countries, from Arab countries, from Asian countries specifically. Then European countries are already hosting a significant immigrant or immigrant origin population. That means the laborers, Muslim laborers who came from the neighboring Muslim countries in search of jobs for Europe, they also did not want to settle. Their aim was to just earn enough so that they can have a good life back at home. What actually became the problem is when they started settling over there. Now, this is not what I am saying. This is what the data suggests, and this is what the cultural thought over there is. Okay, so European countries are already hosting large or significant immigrant or immigrant origin population, opening new channels for migration. So because one family has already migrated over there, the second family might also want to migrate to look for better opportunities, of course. Now, European integration policies have been erratic and inconsistent. See, the thing is that migration is okay with them. They have not said anything about immigration, like people can come and reside. But the policies which should be there so that more integration can be done, that lacks on the European Union's part. This is what another school of thought says. They also say that although there is radicalization, that's for sure, there is radicalization among the youngsters of Muslim population, but that radicalization is on a very small scale. Only a tiny minority of Muslims are actually engaged in radical activities. There are two sorts of extremism and radicalization. First is faith-based. When the young population of European countries, they witness what is happening to their Muslim brethren in Syria, Iraq and Gaza Strip, they start feeling for them. This is a natural sympathy that has grown amongst the Muslim population and amongst the other population of the countries as well, different religions as well. But of course, when they are exposed to it, when they are told stories about them, they become radicalized, and it is very easy to radicalize on the basis of religion. And that has happened. And in reaction to that, there is identity-based extremism. that is the far right parties of such Nordic countries, they try to enthuse the other population that look, because of this cultural alienation that our country is witnessing because of huge influx of Muslim population, your population is actually now in danger. Your demography is now in danger. Now, the European governments, rather than putting out a policy which can be used for better integration, has given birth to two crises. First, radicalization, and second, identity based extremism. Radicalization has to be stopped, specifically if any other population is coming to the host country. They are expected to be loyal, of course. If that region is giving you bread and butter and a better standard of living and you are rebelling against that country, that will never be accepted. And second is that because of identity based extremism, because the political party wants to, most of the political parties want to ensure that they win in the short span of time for multiple years, they cause such identity based extremism. Now, there is a truth in both, but the intensity differs. So, the European government needs to tackle both these. Moving on, hundreds of thousands of North Africans have migrated to France. Indonesian tsunamis, they went to Holland. Germany is more specific since it has been the main destination of Turkish and Kurdish labor immigrants. So there is a difference of migration as well. Now, the thing is that until the 1970s, there was no problem with the Muslim population. Even if they were coming as migrants, they were welcomed. As in, they were people knew that they are not here to settle; they are here to work and eventually go back to their home countries. This is what the first thing was. And of course, those who used to come also believe that we are not here to settle, we are here to just earn enough and then go back to our country, send something back for my children, send some remittances. And that is fine. Now, the thing is that a crisis happened in 1973. Before that, these Muslim neighbors, they contributed a lot. Immigrants, all in all, they contributed a lot when it comes to building rails, roads, everything. So there was an economic boom. But because of the oil crisis in 1973, there was an economic halt as well. So migration was basically seen as a gift before this. The oil crisis of 1973, European states enacted laws which restricted migration, but regular migration, but they also relaxed restriction of family reunification. So the migrants who were already settled there, they started bringing their families. Now, when the families arrived, and specifically from rural areas, they changed the immigrants' attitudes towards religion and cultural values because they are coming from a very different region. Their culture was different, the society was different, their backgrounds were different, their upbringing was different. Now they have come to a new place. And immigrants, before that, when they were laborers, they were okay with, very temporary mosques. In the basement also they could pray. But when the immigrants came to settle finally, they wanted their own mosque. Okay, so they wanted their own mosques and minarets. Also, earlier the immigrants were not very visible, but when they brought their families, more and more immigrants started becoming visible, such as veiled women, children going to school, and this was a generic thing that started happening since the 1970s, late 1970s. Immigrant families congregated in certain areas where they could find informal support structures and social networks. So social gatherings also started to occur. Now here starts the reaction to this, that is far right extremism or identity based extremism. When asylum seekers came specifically from this region, Syria, Iraq, Gaza Strip, this area, if we can say, when they started migrating to Europe, and that were in large amounts, what happens? The European countries started bickering amongst themselves. Who is going to host them? What about our resources? Our population is getting wider. Resources are less. Now, how we will manage them? So basically to this problem, we can say there are two factors. First is the lack of proper integration. Second, there is radicalization. And third, we can, more than two there are. Third, we can say there is a lack of resource support. There is no structure where European Union can find a solution to this. No policies there are. So this is the basic problem. When there are pressure on resources and also demographic changes start to occur in any region of the world, this is the basic thing that retaliation will happen. And the government has failed, the Union governments, various governments have failed to ensure that there is proper policy in place. How to, we are inviting them, but we do not know how to integrate them. We are not sure how to make other part of the population sure that how to ensure that the cultural gap between them is okay. We can finally have, this concept that all the different diverse groups can live together. See, diversity is not new to India. We have grown with this, the concept was very original to India, that we are a diverse countries. Nordic countries have not been diverse since so many ages like India has. So this overwhelming that has occurred, like European Union was caught by surprise by the number of people, by the waves of immigrants that came. This is the actual problem for them. Okay, moving on. Now, as I have already told you about the migration, we should also know that the P2I batches are being launched from 11th of August, and you must join this batch if you want to appear for UPSC 2024, because we are going to prepare you for pre-mains interview. And these are morning classes, 8 a.m. onwards. You have to ensure that you take admission as soon as possible, because we will be able to send you the study material as soon as possible. Other than this, if you qualify Prelims 2024, you will be called to the studyIQ campus in order to prepare for the mains examination as well. This costs 70,000, but if you use the code PD Live, you will get it at 29,999 only. Okay, moving on. What is India's stance? Recently, a resolution was passed by Pakistan on the behalf of OIC, that is countering religious hatred constituting incitement of discrimination, hostility, or violence. India supported it. And among the countries that voted against the resolution were US, UK, France, Finland, Belgium, Germany, and others. The resolution was passed with 28 votes, while 12 opposed and 7 were absent. So India has, of course, condemned this incident. We are a secular country. We have to remember, we have to always abide by the constitution, no matter what others think. Make sure you can have your personal opinions, but when you write it on paper, you have to ensure that your views are coinciding with the government of India's, opinion. Other than this, you're open to free to think anything. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay updated.